The train pulled into Monte Carlo. It was odd to be in a country whose boundaries passed unnoticed. That's how they all should be. I changed my lira for francs and wandered downhill in search of the sea. Monaco has an atmosphere of not quite being France, and not needing to hurry because we don't really matter. Or perhaps it's we've all got money and we don't need to rush. But it was relaxing anyway. And the sky was blue and the sea was blue and bright boat reflections wobbled on the water. And there I was, doing nothing. I decided to make soup while the sun shone, but my watches were wet. Fortunately, I met a Japanese youth who went to his yacht and gave me several bucks of matches. He could probably afford to be generous. After my meal, I got on the road again. Less than 3 days left. The Côte d'Azur is not a good place to hitchhike, and I couldn't afford France's high rail fares. After an hour or so, I got a lift to Nice. I couldn't really say where Monaco ended and France began. I didn't stop to enjoy Nice. I wanted to get this difficult stretch out of the way. I got a couple of short lifts quickly, which took me just beyond Antibes. Then a stroke of luck. A lift in a DS-19 with a camera repairer who lived in Nîmes, away from the Côte d'Azur and Marseille. We talked about Russian cameras, which he didn't like, and he was agreeably surprised at my command of the language. So was I. It must be the 2.5 weeks practice with other people to whom it was a second language. Nîmes is a long, thin town. I ate in a restaurant attached to a hypermarket, then went to bed within 10 yards of the main road, hidden in long grass which made a soft bed. It was cold. I didn't have many feathers left. The next morning, a young lad in a white Peugeot 204 convertible took me to Montpellier, where I photographed trains for a while in the modern station in the Place de la Comédie. Hitchhiking was now becoming complicated by a stream of hitchhikers on their way to Africa. By tea time, I'd passed the flamingo-dappled lagoons at Sète and reached Narbonne. Narbonne is a typical, unflamboyant French small town. No great artistic pretensions, no large-scale gaudiness. Grey buildings in grey streets lined with grey trees under grey skies. But not ugly. I'd like to have spent longer there, and longer with the flamingos. Already it was tea time, and a number of short lifts had kept me warm, occupied and moving, but not given me a good day's mileage. My next lift was in an elderly panhard with a French couple and their French friend. A short lift again to Lessignan. They set me down after an hour or so in a perfect spot, except for the other hitchhiker already there. A Lamborghini stopped and drove him away quickly, and I waited for another 40 minutes. I tried to plead with eyes and thumb to the heavy lorries with Spanish plates. Then a French lorry came and stopped. I leapt in and shivered myself warm. He wasn't going to Spain, but he was going to Toulouse, which was a fair step in the right direction, and a fair bit of warmth on the way. We talked a little, but lorry engines can make conversation hard. Carcassonne. I'd heard it was an historic walled city that I must see, but in the Panhard I'd been told it was ugly. Just beyond the town, heavy lorries were being diverted from the main route to Toulouse. My driver doesn't fancy the diversion and drives on until a gendarme appears and asks where he's going. He admits he's going to Toulouse. Then turn round. Didn't you see the sign? Oh, where can I turn? Where's the road broken? Turn. I can't turn here. I'll turn as soon as I can. And on we go, hoping we don't need to turn. But after 20 minutes, another gendarme on a motorbike waves us down and we have the same conversation. He leads us to a suitable turning place, where we turn, mumbling evil things in the cab. We mumble all the wasteful way back to Carcassonne and round the long, narrow route to Toulouse. Midnight in Toulouse, a city of character, wide tree-lined roads and the wide Garonne. I walked the ring road until I came to the turning for Tarbes. It's a roundabout, and I stand at the appropriate exit, opposite a bar. Cars stop from time to time, and as I rush joyfully towards them, the driver gets out and goes over to the bar. The rain is still falling, but it's no bother. I'll be travelling overnight, so my sleeping bag can get wet. In the cool, refreshing rain, a Citroën stops. They're tinny things and very Spartan inside as cars go, but the drivers often stop for me. This one was about 18 and he'd just given a German gent a lift to Bordeaux. He was from Paris and going to see his parents near Tarbes. We ambled the main road for an hour or so before giving his car a rest outside a cafe, where we have a coffee apiece. Shortly after, he leaves the main road. By reading the signpost we're following, I gather we're going to Bagnères, wherever that may be. But he knows where I'm going. I'll trust him. It must be his parents' village and it must be near Tarbes. His driving's been safe till we come to a hairpin bend and we're going a little too fast, with a squealing of brakes and a crunch of gravel, a sliding of car and a frightening of me. We don't quite hit a churchyard wall. Smiling with nervous relief, we come upon a sign. Dangerous bend. Well, we won't come to any more of them. Oh yes, we have, and we're going over the edge. No, we're not. That was a bit worrying. We go a little slower after this, and slower still as we drive into misty, deep valleys, smoky grey under the ghostly white mountain tops. And through the villages we go, slowly between sleeping houses on narrow, winding roads, until we're at his village. He sets me down on the route back to Tarbes and the main road. I may spend the rest of the night regaining the main road, but it's not been a bad day. A decent distance, decent people, a night of gentle weather and gentle rain. The day had carried me from France's Monegasque beginnings into the rural peace of the southwestern villages and the tumbling valleys of the Pyrenean streams. And as I walked down the road toward Lourdes and Tarbes, rainwater rushed in the roadside stream, and a green barrage of grasses held a cargo of light green apples, pale green circles in the darkness that rushed by around them. Another of the mystic moments that happens in lonely journeys, an image to be kept forever, to be written down for others to know. This is the moment I decided to write this story. And now I've got this far, I realise you can't write a moment. I can remember it. I can picture it. But it can't be described or even photographed. In daylight it would have looked ordinary. And how would I photograph a breeze on my face among the late autumn leaves? It isn't long before a white Mini stops and I get in. The driver, another youngster who drives fast and knows the road. He's taking me to Lourdes, which is a 10-minute journey. He asks why I don't stay in a hotel. First, hotels are expensive round here. And second, I haven't the price of a cheap hotel room. Oh, do you want some money? Butlins doesn't give you moments like these. All mankind should take one of these holidays to experience the miseries, the generosities, the wonderful moments. I'm a lucky person for all these things to happen to me. He gives me about 18 francs to add to the 4 I have left. £2, and half a night and a day and another night to go. But Lourdes is a tourist place and likely to be bad hitching. And it is. Furthermore, there are 4 routes from Lourdes to Pau. I can only choose one, while the traffic may choose the others. There are some cars, but they don't stop. And Lourdes, in its beautiful setting, under an illuminated cross, recedes slowly as I walk away into the darkness. It's 25 kilometres to the main road, and I walked it all that night. It was raining and humanity's chosen to ignore me as I walked on towards the next cluster of lights, the next hamlets. And in each hamlet are a few more people who may be going to the main road later, who may stop. Each hamlet is the next step back to civilization and possibly a lift. It isn't, but there's another light ahead. On I go, always hoping, until eventually the main road surprises me by being suddenly there. 6 a.m, 2 tired feet, and the rain dripping off my hair and off the end of my nose. A DS-19 passes, then a minute later he turns to pick me up. He's only going into the village, but that means one more village full of people available to travel to Bayonne for me, to take me towards Spain. It's a cold morning, and I'd like breakfast, but I get a lift instead, in a small Renault to a roundabout, deserted except for a cafe. I try hitching for 10 minutes or so, but nothing stops, least of all the rain, which gets heavier. And it is breakfast time. So in I go, a bedraggled dog in the morning, and ask for a coffee. When the coffee's halfway down, the proprietor suggests I might want breakfast. She's Basque, and is about as French as a Spaniard. Her French isn't like my French, or like French, and she enjoys being almost intelligible. There's not much I can do except join in the fun of being foreign. I have another coffee and proffer my francs. The breakfast's on the house. Merci. How much are the coffees? Forget it. Be off with you. So I'm in the rain again, warm, fed, and happy to be part of humanity. Until the next bad time. But my next lift doesn't take long. It doesn't take me far either. To the next village, Pouilly. And after half an hour's fruitless thumbing, I found a warm épicerie to spend my newfound francs on light French pastry and cream cakes, which I like. And I go in and eat, warm, new-baked, and delicious. I'm back on the road again. A white van pulls out from the roadside and stops again to pick me up. It's the épicier. He's got 1 shop here and 2 in Péré-Orard where he's going, where he lives. He's proud of his shops and his house and his family and his livelihood. And he's a nice bloke. At the village he tells me to call back for dinner if I'm still there. Dinner with a baker. Tempting when you've been on the road a few weeks. Tempting anyway. I suppose I should get on towards Bayonne, but I agree that if I'm still here, I'll stop for dinner and walk on feeling fairly happy with life. Excuse me, sir. Can I have proof of your identity? I'm led into the gendarmerie where there's a brief and orthodox questioning. I've got all the right documents and, more important, a boat ticket to leave Spain, to show that I'll not be hanging round here. He goes over to the radio to announce my presence in Peyrehorade, but no one's interested. I don't seem to be wanted for anything serious, so I'm released. At the edge of the village, I stop and think. I'm about 60 miles from San Sebastian. I think I can spare the time for dinner with an épicier. I wander the village and watch the Gare du Pau flowing by an avenue of poplars in the French autumn, and pass a small chateau in course of renovation covered in red leaves climbing something or other. Peyrehorade is a pleasant French village of pleasant épiciers and French scenes. It has a market with a covering trellis of trees. At dinner time I go in search of Monsieur Lafoucard, the épicier. He leads me through his bakery to meet his sons. We pile into his van and go off chez Monsieur Lafoucard pour le déjeuner. And Tarzan's on TV in French. First soup. Superb soup. Hot and tasty and not too thick. Served by his lovely daughters, who are as cheeky as they can get away with in the presence of a strange hairy Anglais, while their father's as dignified as they allow him to be. Next, pâté, made by Monsieur Lafoucard. He hands around a big lump of it. Now this is a problem. I'm not a pâté man myself. It's not that I don't like it, just that I'm not sure what to do with it. My host made it, so it's better to err on the large side when taking a helping. So I did. And I drank a little wine while I waited for someone to do something with their pâté. Oh, so that's what you do with it. I should have known. Next, the main course. Big lumps of lamb and gravy and peas and bread and wine. This is all a bit pleasant. Tarzan's being unjustly accused of murder and has a couple of ladies running after him. Ursula Andress and somebody else. But he prefers his monkey. And Ursula ends up impaled down a pit. And we start shelling our roast chestnuts. I had about 3 dozen with wine. Eventually it was time I went. So I did. Back on the road out of Peyrehorade in a light drizzle. I bought 13 francs worth of cream cakes to celebrate with on the boat from Monsieur Lafoucard's épicerie. A Renault stops and carries me a few kilometres, then another. The driver's an experienced hitchhiker and we talk of the extremes of joy and misery, the inconvenience and the blessings. He takes me to Bayonne, drops me on the road to San Sebastian, and goes home to Biarritz. The next lift drops me within 100 yards of the border. I'm the only one in the queue not driving a car, and I feel a bit silly stood there with a little brown box of cream cakes. The French let me straight through, and the Spanish did the same.